Hello and welcome to my channel. I am ZodiacBandit, and we are finally back to scheduling as normal. Back to Critical Role, Campaign 3. I'm excited to have waited these 4 weeks, but now I was so incredibly ready to get back into reviewing the regular campaign. So, with that being said, last time they left off, they had arrived at Bassaras, gotten some place to sleep, and ran into Dusk, the guest player. So that is where they left off when they were walking to the restaurant Taste of Teldore, and on the way, they pass a woman with an automaton. The party try to speak with it, but much like all the other automatons, up to this point, they don't really have their own free will. Which, to me, was the last straw for me to say that Warforged and automatons are the same thing. Uh, they're different because when we saw Devexian in campaign 2, he had his own free will. So up to this point I was saying that they're kind of interchangeable, but now I'm going to start sort of differentiating them because none of them have had free will or even like a mind to speak with. But FCG does, but he is an automaton. So I'm now like there's a new for me a new sort of intrigue to what FCG is, and they ponder what he is later. Imogen tries to speak to the automaton telepathically, but it doesn't answer, and the owner of it says that it only sort of answers and responds to her because she's paid a lot of money for it. They see if Armand is still south of their location, which he is, so they continue toward Taste of Teldore, which has had a lot of build-up to what it is over the last little while. When they get to Taste of Teldore, they see a handful of people and their patrons, and they see 3 waiters all dressed as historical figures of Teldore. I believe, the Frost King or the Elemental King that was, a tyrant at one point. There was the first Teldore, the first sovereign, and I forget the other one, which is my bad, but they didn't focus on that one all that much. Taste of Teldore was great. There was lots of theming and lots of, cool. Losing the word here. Lots of imagery of Teldore with the crest of, I believe it was the crest of Teldore on a mirror, which is where they sat right near. A bunch of drinks themed around Teldore. Like I said, the waiters. There was music playing. There was a play at one point for, when the first sovereign killed the Frost Rhyme. Whatever it was, the name is escaping me now. But this was fun. Nice reference to the history of Exandria in this restaurant. And I was expecting it to be much worse than what it was. Like, much heavier on references to Campaign 1. But it wasn't. It was references to Teldore, not Vox Machina. And I should have figured that because it wasn't Taste of Vox Machina, which is gross now that I've said it. But it was Taste of Teldore. So, should have figured it was more Teldore themed. They sit down at a table and they start asking Dusk about her and what she's doing, where she's from, what happened. And the first real thing you kind of learn from her is that she got helped out of the Fey realm by Fern's parents, which is then the thing that they lock on to the most out of everything they talk to her about. We learn from Fern that she hasn't seen her parents in 90 years. It's unclear how long it's been since Dusk saw them. It's also unclear how long Dusk was in the Feywild, and it's also unclear how long it's been since she left the Feywild. So a lot of time mumbo jumbo surrounding the Feywild right now. She has a locket with a picture of Fern's parents, and this confirms to Fern that she's telling the truth, that her parents did indeed, or potentially did, help her escape the Feywild. Dusk thinks her parents are nearby, her parents being Fern's, and the party now tell Dusk what they are doing, tracking Armand Treshy, because now they have a true meaning to trust her. Like, beforehand, they weren't quite sure if they could trust her, but now it seems they can because they have a relation, some sort of connection. With the picture of Fern's parents, Imogen can potentially reach out to them and communicate with them, and when she tries, they get a delayed answer back, which is a little nervous for Imogen, but when she gets it back, she needs Fern's mother wants some sort of confirmation that Imogen, in fact, does know Fern. To which, when they finally get a response to that, they learn that her parents are a few days out of Bassaris and will meet them at Joe's. They ask the bartender at the Taste of Teldore about what Joe's could be, but the bartender doesn't really know anything. Luckily, one of the waiters does and tells the party that he is a mechanic tinkerer of sorts and helps build / fix the crawlers for the crawler gangs. After they get some, Teldore themed food and drink, they begin to follow the orb once more to Armand's location, as they have a few days to wait before having to worry about Fern's parents. So they're going to focus on Armand. They follow the orb to a pawn shop in a large bazaar. Is that how you say it? I'm terrible with other words for markets. They follow it to a pawn shop where it is revealed that Armand pawned his ring off because he had no money. He had to leave everything behind in Jushar, including his money. He could have grabbed a little bit. Gold's not that heavy. Dusk casts suggestion on the person running the shop, and they spill the beans on everything, where Armand is most likely to be, which is, he is with the Paragon's Call at the Seat of Disdain. I had to confirm that it wasn't disdain, but it was disdain from what I've read, so that's interesting. A fortress that's been used by crawler gangs in the past, and seems to continue to be used by crawler gangs. This is where we also learn a bit more about crawler gangs, and that it's not about territory, but more about a hierarchy. And Ashton seems to find it strange that the Paragon's Call are legitimate. This implies that last they were there, they either didn't exist as a crawler gang, or were very small and were probably super low on the crawler gang hierarchy, which now, in comparison, they seem to be incredibly high up there. We also learned that Ashton hasn't been there for 10 years, hasn't legitimately been there, involved in Bassaris for 10 years. So that's something new about Ashton. On their way to the fortress, they see a large crawler moving at a fairly decent speed, but not as fast as other crawlers that they saw outside of the city. But this one, like I said, was much larger, and its purpose seems to be carrying a bunch of crawler gang members instead of just having a handful or two on there. When they get to the fortress, they see a multi-leveled fortress with a wall surrounding it, and it's made out of metal and stone mostly. They discuss what they could do. Ashton does have an in with Ratanish, because he said after their fight that Ashton didn't lose, that if Ashton ever wanted work, Ashton could go find Ratanish somewhere. And that could be an inn they could use here, or... but Oram doesn't like this idea because he doesn't want to just go into this fortress blind, and he'd rather watch the fortress for a bit on stakeout. So they go off to the side and split up into two groups. One group starts to walk around the base looking for other ways in, potential weaknesses, and the other stays behind in front of the door in case someone like Armand or anyone else comes and goes from the fortress. While the walking team is going around, they see it's in a pentagon shape, and Fern sees a potential way to, wild shape and get into the fortress. Dusk thinks there's a better way to do this than for one person to go off by themselves, and what if she gets caught? But everyone else seems to think that this is normal. This is what happens. So, during this little conversation, Fern sneaks off by herself and wild shapes into and I'm going to say this wrong, a quokka? Apparently, a quokka is a wallaby-like creature. It's roughly the size of a domesticated cat, and this is literally what Google said, so I'm going to roll with it, because I have never heard of a quokka before in my life. So this was new. You learn something new every day watching Critical Role. She digs her way under the wall, but gets stuck, and Imogen has to use telekinesis to sort of help her. And almost as soon as she gets in, she gets to see the courtyard for a minute. She gets picked up by a member of the Paragon's Call and is now her pet. She then gets taken through the fort, and she tries to remember the path that she's being taken on, but is eventually put into this member's room. The member of the Paragon Call leaves, and now, alone, Fern starts making a bunch of noise to see if someone will come help her. To me, this is when I would think Fern has multiple wild shapes at this point, I believe, so she could have just become human again, opened the door, and then transformed back into the creature, and then walked. But in the heat of the moment, you don't think of these things. So it was actually more fun what ended up happening, which was another member came in with his sword raised, but instead of killing the creature, the rodent, he picks her up and takes her for himself now. He tries to take her to his room, and along the way, Fern sees Ratanish, which confirms that he is here, and which double confirms that Armand is likely there. This member tries to put Fern into a locker or a lockbox, but Fern bites him, which wakes up another member of the Paragon's Call, and he informs that one that you're not allowed to have pets. So then, now, this member has to get rid of Fern. He walks Fern back to the courtyard, tells the operators to open the door because Fern is way too cute right now to be thrown over the wall, which is lucky, saves her from being turned back into Fern at a very bad time. But to go with that, Fern rolls well on her dexterity save, doesn't take any damage from being tossed out of the fortress main door, and the party comes back together to hear what she learned about her little excursion into the fortress. They start planning, again, different ideas, like splitting into two teams, going inside the base, and another one making a distraction so that the Paragon's Call kind of split their forces, giving the inside team a less armored group to sort of be in there while they look for Armand. And then the other one was having Ashton use his in and go in with FCG and see if they can, trick Ratanish into thinking that they're going to join, while Chetney goes invisible and grabs Armand and uses the bead they got from the Green Seekers to encase him in the large circle and then throw him into the black hole. However, both of these plans, sort of fall through as they don't know how the Paragon's Call will respond to the distraction on the outside. They might do nothing. They might wait for the distraction to affect the fortress. And once Chetney catches Armand, he is now stuck. There's no way for him to get out because he won't be able to turn invisible again. And he has no way to truly stealthily get out. He could try, but good luck. FCG keeps wanting to get a crawler vehicle involved somehow, and Chetney wants to get the werewolf group that he was told about from Gurge, but he then remembers that they're still a little bit out of the Hellcatch Valley, so it's not quite within reach to use them quite yet. Instead, they choose to try to get Armand to leave the fortress, as he was able to sell his ring in the first place, so he must be allowed to leave. They come up with a plan to deliver a letter to him saying the pawn shop is looking to sell his ring, and this would be his last chance to sort of go get it back, as the owner received a bid on the ring that was too good to pass up, but he doesn't want to be a total douchebag about it, so he's giving him one last chance. This will make him leave the fort, and I believe they said on the way to the location they were going to try to grab him, and then throw him in the black hole, and then open it every few minutes because the black hole runs out of air eventually, so they would need to constantly throw it down, open it up, and let him breathe. Imogen then goes back to the pawn shop and gets the name of the owner, which is Adon Hero, which Ashton is taken back by because I guess the heroes own the whole bazaar that pawn shop was in, and they're kind of a big deal in Bassaris. With this, they can now forge a letter. They have a competition to see who can make the best fake letter, and Orem, with his knowledge of calligraphy, made the best one. And he claims that he learned from Darig, which is one of his older characters from the Dalen's Closet one-shot, to sort of write on air, which is how Liam put it. So then they go back to their rooms, rest up, and the next day, Dusk will be the one to run the letter to the fortress, as Armand has not seen her yet. So they have someone to potentially lie to Armand and to potentially Ratanish as well. And that's where the episode ends, with them waking up the next morning, being rested, and Imogen is getting clumps of her hair back. FCG not getting a true full night's sleep, but also not a bad sleep, because of the birds chirping in the air that he is not a fan of, because shithead's around the corner somewhere. But yeah, that was the episode, and we're finally back to the regular programming of Critical Role, and I'm excited. I've been waiting a while for this, because I liked, I believe it was it 5 weeks? They did 4 episodes of EXU Calamity, and then they did a one-shot, and while the one-shot was fun, it didn't quite fill that void that was left that 1 week. So definitely happy to be back doing the regular Critical Role Campaign 3. I missed these characters. These characters are a lot of fun, and I love how much time and effort they put into planning for, it never to really work out. So I can't wait to see how they somehow end up getting in a fight with Ratanish. Very excited for that. Also, I love how Dusk has kind of come in and is like being a mild voice of reason, which is strange. I didn't picture this character to be a mild voice of reason, but when Fern says she can sneak off by herself, Dusk is like, hang on, we don't have to separate. Like, we're already separated as it is. Like, we can just come back together as a group and figure it out. And then Fern F's off, which is perfect Fern. Gotta love it. And also, I was at first a little nervous that they weren't going to like have Imogen and Laudna sort of be, I don't want to say against each other, but they're not in a good place as of right now. And at the beginning portion of the episode, it kind of looked like they were just going to ignore it for now for the sake of the party. But as the episode continued, they began to address it more in a joking manner, of course. But it was nice to see that they do remember that this terrible thing happened. So it was kind of nice to have Laudna show how upset she is about all this, and kind of how upset Imogen is that she thinks Laudna is just kind of moving past it because Dusk is here now and blah, blah, blah. And it was kind of a interesting moment between Dusk and Imogen where she asked if her and Laudna were a thing, to which Imogen replied no, which will probably devastate the fan base. But it was their relationship getting a spotlight throughout this episode was also a fun thing, and I wanted to just touch up on it a bit at the end here, because it is something that to me is a big driving force to Campaign 3 so far. Their relationship is one of the most interesting, as they seem to be the ones who, aside from the EXU gang, I guess, have been like together the longest. It's unclear how long Ashton and FCG have been rolling around together, but I feel like that Imogen and Laudna have been traveling together for a while now, and their relationship seems to be the strongest out of everyone. So for it to be so strained now is a fun, unique sort of thing, because normally when a relationship gets strained, the character leaves. Like that's what happened to Scanlan in Campaign 1, and now we get to see what it's like for a strained relationship on this kind of level without someone leaving. And I'm actually really excited to see where that goes, especially because the two of them have different outlooks on how it's going. Because Imogen seems to think that Laudna has moved on altogether, but Laudna's devastated by this. So it's very interesting to see where it goes next week. And yeah, I think one more thing. This episode confirmed 100% to me that Will, Orem's husband, was Derek's son. So there is another sort of reference to Ashari Vox Machina in Orem. Beforehand, it was a lot of speculation, and it was almost confirmed speculation, but now it's guaranteed confirmed, because he straight up just brought him up, and there's no way you're going to bring up Derek, have your widower be, widower is not even the right word, have your dead husband be named Will as well, and not have it be Derek's Will. So, you know, just a nice little confirmation that we got there about Derek and Orem. So that to me was nice, because that little seed that Orem planted, or that Liam planted, about his husband Will, to me made me dive super deep into characters from the Ashari that we met that were named Will, to which we never met this Will. We met his father. So that to me was awesome. That was a nice deep dive that I got to go down on for this little character. So yeah, that is all for today. On Tuesday, I'm back to ranking characters, ranking PC characters from the players. So yeah, we'll be finally back into the regular swing of doing a review once a week instead of after a 4-week campaign. So yeah, all right, see you guys. Yeah, that's me. Peace.